There we go. Can we see me now? I know there's a delay. I'm looking down here at the tablet to see if the camera came on. And wouldn't you know it? Oh, come on. There we go. Let me get the lighting. I just got shut down tonight. What is this guy doing? I am at the Loves between Draper, Virginia, and Whiteville. And my apologies for the unprofessional, but luckily I did change shirts and got the camera going. But I forgot to put my lighting up as I do have mics. And I am right by the shop, but this guy's trying to back in, and he's almost like trying to back right in where I'm sitting. I don't know if he knows how to back in. So let me get this up and going. Oh, I am at the Love between Draper, Virginia, and Whiteville. And my apologies for the unprofessional, but I did change shirts and got the camera going. But I've got to put the lighting up because I can't fall. I am right by the shop. This guy's trying to back in. Trying to back right in around. Well, he's a foreigner. And bear with me. Get the lighting. Oh, there it is. Look at that. And get my clippy here. So unprofessional. I know it. I know it. Jeez. Now, put that up. Yep, I see. It's got kind of a starburst. All right, all right. How is everyone doing tonight? So, before we get into any discussions, if you could like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, would be so much appreciative. And just I don't know what happened. My color went off. Bear with me for a minute. I want to make sure this guy backs in, but for the time being, if you could, this guy makes what it is with these foreigners. They make it harder than what it is back. And I don't know how they can come to this country and say, well, I got experience driving truck. A gas steak rack is not driving a truck in some Amazon backwoods jungle country. Oh, he's a sketchy soul, he is. How's the lighting? How's the sound? If y'all could chime in on that. Get the chat going here. Let me find the chat. Comments. Miss Laura, thank you. I didn't call you, but I got here. I had a busy day. I delivered yesterday and turn volume down on your phone or tablet. Oh, yep. There we go. I forgot that thing's going. What's this guy doing? All right. I can hear your echo back on your phone or tablet. It's the tablet. Is it better now, Laura? Tell me so. Tell me so. Is there any echoing back? Is it better? So, I had one busy day. I delivered yesterday at noon, and then we're working on StreamYard. And if y'all would, got the mics, but guess what? Boy Genius here forgot to take the tape off where these charge onto this platform, so they're not powered up. So they're charging right now. You know, when you got to pull that plastic tab off the battery, well, that's the little metal connections. So I didn't realize that was on there till I was like, why isn't this communicating with the receiver? So all good, cool. But so, and I got, man, this love never disappoints, Laura. This is the one I sat here one day when everyone was racing around the horn, and then people would slam on their brakes, and people were trying to back in, and people were nearly getting T-bone and broadside. Yeah, that's that one. So delivered yesterday, got up to Elkins, West Virginia, up in the peak of the Appalachians, and I kicked off there. I've been all over today, and I kicked off 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I kicked off 8 stops. Didn't think I was going to get my last one done, and over by Virginia Tech, but I did get that one done. I was going to go to the Petro out at Glad Springs there by Bristol, Tennessee, and I said if I did that, I'd be pushing, not doing the live stream. That and Gen X Dad lost his shit. Did what? I don't understand what you're with the mics. Yeah. So anyhow, I got 3/4 of the trailer unloaded. I got a quarter left, so I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna be up in the Appalachians, Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky tomorrow for probably half of the day. Then work my way out of there and over to Lexington. But I've got to stop over towards Bristol in the morning, so I am like a day and a half ahead of schedule. So that turned out good, and but I do have to get that communicating the receiver, the mics, and they will once I get those figured out. And the thing of it is my OtterBox on my phone. I had to disassemble and take that off for the receiver to plug into my phone. There is no port on the laptop for that to plug into. So that was that. So I only had by the time I post trip, I cleaned the salt off the windows, just kind of tidied things up in here real quick. Because I got here at 5:40, so 6 o'clock, just after 6, I logged off, and then computer, getting everything up and going. And here we are. Is the lighting good, Laura? Last time I didn't. This thing's got like 4 settings, so I set them on the high setting, but the lighting seems to be better. And we're doing improvements, and it'll only get better as time goes on. Like I said, we're slowly investing into this. Now we got the mics. We will, going forward, we got to pay down our business credit line, and then I'm going to do an annual membership with the StreamYard. We looked at it together, and it's got some good features, but it will not. Yeah, lighting's good. We just can't get to it when you're using just a free version of it. So you know how that goes. But I threw in a topic or a discussion of, and I wanted to just say, let's keep things simple. There's a lot of geopolitics going on in the world right now, whether you're talking Iran, Venezuela, Minneapolis, the Federal Reserve, and them being subpoenaed now. And it looks like they may end up just absorbing the Federal Reserve in with the U.S. Treasury so they can just control all the money. So it's just one thing after another. And I'm not going to bore you with that because we can be triggered, we can get upset, we can worry. At the end of the day, it's things that we can't control. And a friend of mine that's got a YouTube channel, he was talking about that today. And I commented and said, people go off and make things their business, hence the Minneapolis thing. Getting involved in things that you shouldn't be at or shouldn't belong to, and just tending to your backyard, tending to your ecosystem, your economy, and keeping yourself in above survival mode to sustaining into this living in this country. But people can't seem to do that. That everybody else's business is their business, and that's my wife and I are not any of those folks. The only way you get my attention on anything geopolitical or anything like that is unless you're just Chernobyling my backyard, then you got my attention. Otherwise, I don't care. And it may be, well, why don't you care? Because I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about all these terrorists that have flooded over the borders. I don't give a shit about these people that are so backwoods ignorant that they got less than an 8th grade education to go and protest. I don't care, their outcomes, whether they go home safe or they don't. That I just don't give two shits. I also don't give shit about American pro sports. I don't give a shit about American collegiate sports. I don't give a shit about the Olympics. Those are things that they're not bringing world peace. They're not curing cancer, and so I don't give a shit. And a lot of people probably don't like that mindset, but I just really tend to keep to myself and keep within. I stay in my lane and tend to just keep in my business, keeping my backyard orderly. So there you go. But I think we talked about it the last stream, and I probably, kind of start the discussion here. I just wanted people to get in the comments and just discuss what drew you in, or how did you get into trucking? Mine was just a combination of growing up around it, and then of course the job interview for being a diesel mechanic, they ended up hiring me as a truck driver instead. And I was doing it because I was fresh out of community college, where I got my associate's degree, and took my state license. So I was going around putting paper applications in back then in 88 and 89. And through that college for at least over a year while I was going to diesel school, I was working at Alice Chandler. Back then, Alice Chandler had their own dealerships, which was their agricultural implements and tractors, implements, and gleaner combines. So I worked on those for well over a year. Then when I was gearing up to graduate, they said they wanted to let me know that they could not pay me much more than what they were already paying me then. So I would be better off looking for a job or furthering my career with something bigger and better. And so I did. But once I went for I went for several interviews. It ended up being the last interview on what I had out there, and ended up getting that driving because through college and that, my daughter then she was born in 86, so she was 18 months, couple years old, and so I had child support, and I was behind. and I had a car payment. My grandfather helped me out getting that car, and my first car, decent new car, used new to me, but got that. But yeah, I had some bills, financial obligations that was like, all right, I'll figure this out as I go. I didn't know anything about heavy haul, but I have to thank my friend. Still a long, decades long friend, my friend Ron, for he he really, I want to say, towed the line, holding my hand at times and kicking me in the ass and calling me out on shit. But growing up, yeah, I was always around construction equipment. Grandfather was a dairy farmer. I was around all that equipment. And when I would visit my dad in the summers, because he lived a state away, normally I'd go out with him and his friend and truck for a couple weeks during the summer visit. And I've posted a few pics on the community post of me, riding along either in a GMC Astro cab over. I've been in a Transtar cab over, that W9, the Model A Kenworth with the coffin sleeper. I think that was the more latest one. I think I was in my teenage years when I went riding with them on that. Yeah, we did anything from hauling up to Detroit with auto parts back then to Wisconsin with potatoes, various stuff, upstate New York, just because of the locale where my dad was about an hour east of Cleveland. So they were in that hub where you could go any which way, but I don't think they went to Canada then. But it just, I always was fascinated with that. And of course, his circle track racing, drag racing. I was just a gearhead and just loved being around big trucks. But I think what really influenced me is two television programs. Was Moving On, which my wife has watched with me, with Claude Akins. That there was my Kenworth craze, and the W9. I loved that show. And then BJ and the Bear came out, a few years later with the Aerodyne cab over. I was just in awe with, that was just like the lifestyle of like being cool and all that, at least in my eyes. So who knows? A lot of folks, they don't, they have other reasons that, maybe I've seen in my tenure of being in trucking, I've seen guys work as accountants to white collar jobs, whether it was in banking, financial. I don't want to say some of these guys were, what was it, marketing and other jazz, where they've gotten laid off in their white collar jobs, and they either got in with a company that trained them to get their license, and this is like, say, 25 years ago, just before I quit. There was a lot of people that were losing their jobs, finding that they had, they didn't want to lose their house and their lifestyle, so they jumped into trucking. Many of them wrote it out to get their self elevated. Never heard much if they stayed in it for long term. Many tried it for a few months to a year and bailed and got out. I don't know. They just couldn't pan out. A lot of the guys, when they get away from home, especially when you got wife and kids, and they got to stay out 1, 2, 4 weeks at a time, they have a tendency to get homesick and bail and say screw it. They just didn't want to be away. But the pay, I've seen guys from the white collar section come in back in my prime. I don't know if this is my second time around being in my prime, but security, yeah, security would be, just because those guys got laid off, they were in a sector that, in the 80s and 90s, they pushed college, get a white collar job, become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, medical field, what have you. And that led into the early 2000s, but I think in the 20 teens and later, I think people started to realize that even when you came out with a bachelor's degree, you still couldn't find good work. And most of the work that paid in that field didn't pay any better than if you were working at McDonald's or Starbucks. So the trend, I think, after 2010, the trend of going to college and trying to make it big is it was a lie being sold, because colleges are a business any more than healthcare is now a for-profit business, pharmaceuticals, insurance, everything. But I bought into it, but I wanted to be a chiropractor because I wanted to be in my own business, dictate when I was going to go into work, when I was going to leave. The more hustle I put into the practice, the more output or more income I would achieve. So it was all dependent on me, but I didn't want to be under the ruling thumb of an employer. Um, but that got sidetracked too. But in the thing of it is the outcome is I've gotten to raise a child over that, and got the experience. But coming back in the trucking the second time with what the more education, the more life experiences, being older, I I'm using it as a tool more than as a career to position and elevate myself to be where I want to be in life, that I set out to achieve 25, well, now 26 years ago. So will this will my trucking career sunset? Yes, and not in a retirement status. I will just change my paradigm and go into a different direction, more entrepreneurial and self-achieving, as far as cash flow and income and all that. But what did we have? We had pay, security, freedom. That's the one thing I will say. When I worked in healthcare, um, you had the clipboard people, the administrators, and I'm talking from the experience of being in trucking. My 12 years, I ran 1,000,000 miles, and I want to say 750, 800,000 of those was just in the state of Michigan doing heavy haul on the Michigan specials. But when I left and went into the white collar sector of working in healthcare, the things, when I got back out here, the things I said I'd never allow myself to be is clipboard people, these power tripping people at the hospital running around with clipboards. You're not doing this right, and I'm going to write you up for this, and I'm going to write you up for that. And uh, dealing with egotistical people that had entitlement, in the entitlement itis of, they come in, and whether it's a different race other than white, and then they get the Obamacare, whatever it is, they just come in with this, whoa, you got to tend to me, because I'm like, if you take better care of yourself, your your damn fat ass wouldn't be in here sickly as hell doing frequent flyer miles in the healthcare. But that's the ignorance of many cultures, that they come in and they flex around. They're and like I said, it's just a culture thing with their entitlements, and you got to bow down to that shit. I know, probably the last year I started really laying into people. They'd have their Obama phones and their Coach purses, and bitching the whole time, not coming down from their rooms about, you people don't feed me. I didn't have my caffeine. Well, because those will null and void and give a false positive or a false negative on the test you're having. So these people be bitching and bitching and bitching about their not getting their breakfast, not getting their caffeine, not getting this, not getting that. Why do you got to wake me up so early in the morning? I said, because tests got to be done. I laid into one lady and I took her purse and phone away and I said, look, if you want a fucking day spa, go down the road. This isn't a day spa. You're here for a medical test and medical treatment. Otherwise, I'll hike your ass back to your room and you can check yourself out AMA. And it was just, that kind of crap. And I really did. I had, for probably 3 months, I had, I want to say, tachycardia, which was just the racing heart rate because of holding back, not speaking my piece. And I saw people jumping in, but when I worked in healthcare, and I would just get worked up because I bottled everything in. Then I'd go home and just vent, whether to friends or even when my wife come along. But I would just vent. A lot of all that was just going out and riding the bike and doing practice and all that jazz, or working out just to offset, wanting to just thump someone. But being on that side in the white collar sector, then coming back out here, 14 years there between college, healthcare, coming, and then, like I said, 2 layoffs, coming back out here, I've had way more peace being in the truck, more calmness. I mean, even I've stopped energy drinks. What has it been? Over a month now, Laura, since 1st of December. I think it's been since Thanksgiving. And even when I've taken energy drinks and been dog ass tired, and I know I've had my blood pressure taken, and my wife's like, I don't know how the hell you can have below normal, like a 110/70 blood pressure when you just crawled out of the truck an hour prior on energy drinks and, wound up for sound. Just you're always kind of a little wound up out here on this, but just coming in and not even been able to decompress yet. But, it's one of those that this is more calming for me. And like I said, I enjoy it, but I even said it back then, and I said it when I left healthcare. The government and the bureaucracy is ruining everything. And it's even getting worse here with all the foreigners and illegals and all that. So, these people want professional drivers, yet they don't want them to have proper training and all the other qualifications, to make them safe out here. So these people that push back on these foreigners, I say, but until they run over you and your family, good for thee, but not for me. But then all of a sudden, then you become the focal point of attention because, one of the monkeys drove over you, which seems to be a norm. Yeah. Then, when does it become, when it's a politician or someone like that, or a military official, then it's like, hey, maybe we should take some assertive action on this. But yeah, to be in college, trucking, college, healthcare, back in the trucking, at least I got a good well-roundedness on it. And to know what I really want in life. And trucking bailed me out as I was free falling financially back in by 2013. We were free falling pretty fast. We had been in a 9 to 10 month span. We had talked to 2 bankruptcy attorneys then from 13 and 14, or 14 and 15, that as you're free falling, you reach out and grab that hook. It saved you from going under, and that was my CDL, and it saved us in extensively to where we had to slowly climb back up out of that free fall and get back up on solid ground and walking again. And I'm thankful for that. And again, I can't preach it enough that people that get into this industry should be using it to elevate themselves. but not to sit here for 30, 40, 50 years and hanging on the steering wheel, making something of their life. And I want to say the be all, until the end, or end all be all. You should be positioning yourself to look at getting yourself more locally. So, like I said, either you're going to do a local route, run it. For a lot of guys, where I grew up, when I ran gravel trains, a lot of guys would just get off over the road and just go home and work seasonally, because Michigan, you can't really do much in the winter other than spread salt or plow snow, because everything's frozen and buried in snow. So a lot of guys would run dump trucks seasonally, and or then shoot down to Florida and drive dump trucks down there while they're snowbirding down there. So I've seen guys do many of things. Others would just take a career path by I want to say doing online classes of more modern, or they got their mortgage in line, paid off their vehicles, to where then they could do a community college, go home, work some full-time job around there, and do community night classes at a community college, and elevate themselves that way. But you got to be looking ahead and saying this can't be the end all be all career path. I know a lot of folks, especially as of today, the immigrants that come here, well, yeah, you know they're living in freaking dirt houses and huts and dirt floors, and eating their own poo, and bathing in a urine soaked river, and you know jazz like that. I mean, their hygiene and way of living is a shit. It's this a shithole, and they don't have no understanding of living here. But then a lot of them that run under the non-domicile, they're never going to be citizens here. They are coming here, living in these trucks, making all the bank and sending it back home, to eventually one day just go back home. They're not going to stay here. That is their intent. The majority of them, and there's so many of them that have been doing it for years, running under a non-domicile, that they have no intentions to become a citizen, and it's got to take an act of Congress and government to just do away with the non-domicile. Just not even just say, do this, this, and this. Just erase it. Just erase it off the board. Say these things don't exist anymore. We're not using these. And the work visas, all that shit, just throw it all away. Erase it and just say, you want to drive here to get a CDL, you got to be a U.S. citizen. That way, then you're locked in as a tax-paying citizen. So, that jazz all goes to back to the country here, and not to your homeland. So I wish I could turn this camera around. I'd have you guys watch, as I usually do on the phone streams. This Loves is just notorious for these guys to race through here like 30, 40 miles an hour. And it's just, I don't know, the unwritten rules. So a lot of guys beat it in me back in the 80s and 90s. There's things that you didn't do, that wasn't so much written by the FMCSA or state federal laws. It was basically you just did because that's what the guys did. I remember a lot of guys retiring as I was starting out the first couple of years, that had been in it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they came up in a different time. It was harder then. Unions and Jimmy Hoffa and all that jazz coming up. With the Teamsters, just trying to get everything unionized and making it hard for the independents and all that jazz back then. So they had their problems, but it was in a different paradigm. They didn't have all the government and technology and all that. They'd have some, outlaw sheriff or police department hating on truckers, and trying to bust each and every one of them that passed through their county. So, these guys were up against many other things compared to what we deal with now. It was just, just differently. Even though they may have had paper logs and no computers in the trucks, but um, they still had vandalism on their trucks when they'd be parked because um, they would probably not run under the union, and they'd want to run independent. Um, some good movies from that kind of era to kind of showcase that is like Steel Cowboy with not Josh. What's Josh Brolin's dad's name? James Brolin and Rip Torn in that one, and then White Line Fever. White Line Fever was a good one to show what showcase what uh, brokers or carriers would do to run guys out of business if they didn't play ball with them and haul their loads. And what was the other? Convoy, of course, Convoy. Everyone knows that one. So, those were three movies that kind of showcase what the independent guy was up against. And yeah, so they had to carry guns. It got nasty out there back then. It was definitely more of the Wild West then compared to what it is now. It's just all everyone knows everyone's business, and truck tracking to technology and all that really, um, you know, the big eye in the sky watching down on you. But that's probably what makes me kind of dislike this industry is all the technology, all the more regulations. Like, we need more government. Well, all government's going to do is saturate you with more policies and more regulations. So it's just going to make your life even harder. So it is best to not want more government, but be more involved in, an industry like this to stand up and be a voice. Whether it's to Sean Duffy and the FMCSA or get, involved with me, like I've emailed and through a, hey, I'm out here. I'm all for what the American Truckers United are doing. They're making things happen way better. The ATA and the OIDA don't do shit. They're all for profit. They're just another corporation. So, but I still love driving. I love the freedom um, to be able to go compared to the hospital and working, especially when you work with way more women. Gals are, women are a real, try to keep this clean. Um, Even other women don't want to work with women. Too dramatic, too over the top. Just, you know, the, I want to say the Karens of the world, but the Gladys, I always call them the Gladys Kravitz of the world. That's always got to be peeking over the fence into your backyard, nosing into what your business is, and not really paying attention to the keeping their backyard and their business clean, just like I started out saying. Um, and what was that last one I had put down? Do you remember, Laura? Trying to think. There was that. Oh, generational. A lot of guys are very fortunate that they've had a father that and I saw this in two other fields, but they have a father, uncle, family that started a business, maybe in, say trucking, and they just grew up in it, and they picked up and they towed the line after everyone else was getting old and ready to retire. They pick up the slack and they carry the business onward. A lot of these 50, 75, 100-year-old companies that have been going out of business lately, probably due to a lot of financial pressures, but a lot of them have gone out of business too because they lack the generational for them to take and carry on that trucking company, the name. And I worked with a generational farmer back in the early to mid 80s, and I'll tell you what, how far, these two old boys, they ran all Minneapolis Molines, combines, tractors, implements, everything was Minneapolis Molines. They grew up and lived on that, and I got assigned a G90, I think it was. It was, like a 90 horse open. There was no cab on it, but I would I would use the 3 point for a lot of just cleaning up after harvest or cultivating. Um, the combining, they showed me how to run. They had a grain truck, gas, GMC gas. I think it was the 366 gas GMC with a 2-speed rear axle. And they showed me how to drive that. And then I'd run that, get that filled when we were harvesting, run that into the elevator. So, and that was like 16, 17, 18 years old until I decided to move on and do some other career things. But I've had that, and then I've seen doctors. Uh, their children have zero interest in them, even with their big practice or multiple partners in practice, and their kids have taken a 180 and said, I don't want nothing to do with it. But they didn't have a problem riding their parents' coattails on the money, give me a new car, give me this, give me that, pay for this, pay for that. I've seen that a lot. I've seen, even in the industry I'm in, I've seen these businesses uh, close shop because they didn't have no generational that wanted to have anything to do with their business. And I'm sorry if I'm looking out that way, but the shop here at the Loves, the shop's right nearly across from me. It's kind of like one or two truck spots over. Guy's backing out, but he couldn't pull out. I guess they just had him back out. It's a pull through, so he had something done on his flatbed here. But I've seen kids take advantage of their parents because their parents are, they've worked hard going to college, become a doctor or a cardiologist, and then the kids are just riding their coattails, and it's a shame. And that was one thing I ingrained in my kids for many years. I was tough love. I was an asshole with my kids growing up. The fact that they could look at it and say, you're a cold prick at times. But I said, if I died today or tomorrow, do you have the life skills to pick up and carry on to sustain in life? Or are you just going to be fumbling around and making bad decisions and being dependent on someone else or the government? I said, you need to know how to pick yourself up when life throws you down. And I taught them, how to get mortgages, how to save up, and dude, he's backing in. All right, he's back. I guess it is an empty spot. I thought he was going to back on someone. But yeah, I wanted them to have the life skills. I didn't want them to. There's so many kids that have gotten so coddled in life that they have no idea on how to live and sustain on their own without mommy and daddy's help. So, plain and simple. Take me out of this world, and I want them to be able to know how to do everything that I've done. And I've done it through I've taken the hard road to get where I'm at. I don't want them to go down that road, but I want them to work for what they have and not being given to them. But I'm thankful, and I've said it before on these streams, I'm very thankful for being out here, for having my CDL and having the skill set to be able to drive and do what I do. And wow. One guy slowing down, the other guy got pissed and raced around him. And they are just wicked through here. I didn't want to stay here, but it was go to the Petro and miss the live stream, or there was plenty of parking here, so I shut it down a little early so I could make the live stream. So it was the trade off. And this place is just, it's like a zoo. It's like almost like being in the hustle and bustle of LA. Um, but yeah, I'm just curious what many of you, even after the stream, comment down below and tell me, what got you involved? What drew you into trucking? Was it a passion? Was it, you know, you had nowhere else to go and you were financially hurting? I saw a thumbnail for a YouTube video where the guy said he was homeless and he had scraped up enough money to go to CDL school that he was basically hanging out at the school just to get through, because he had nowhere to go, nowhere to live, looking to get in with a company. So he basically lived in one of these trucks. And yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And I've seen a lot of people, you will see a lot of couples in the YouTube realm that have sold their house and they've been living out of their truck while their health is allowing them to be out here and see the country and, fulfill some of that while they're making money and getting paid, instead of just like the RV life where people sell their house but yet try to leverage their way into remote work and travel, with an RV and all that. I think if it wasn't for our dogs, I would have my wife ride with me, but she's got obligations at home, amongst not only the dogs but other things that she needs to be focused on and not bouncing up and down in the seat over here. Um, so that, and I know she would enjoy some of the sites I've seen, but um, if we could have done this just 35 years sooner, I think that would have been a cool thing. And but yeah, I'm very happy, very blessed, and like I said, finding and getting in with a company, staying with a company that recognizes that you're going over and above, you're giving them 110%, and they give you respect back. There is, I want to say, less than 10% of companies do that. This company really does that for us, and for me, they ask, I do, and because I know when I need something, they never pause, they never hesitate. If I gotta have time off, if something comes up, they make sure it gets worked through for me. And a lot of companies will do that. A lot of them give you a lot of shit and a lot of pushback just trying to get home. That's the biggest thing that truck drivers, you'll see truck drivers complain about, is they'll be out for 4 weeks and then they start wanting to turn the steering wheel to home just to get some home time, and the company will fight them to. I mean, they'll just make their lives a living hell. You'll see it out there in YouTube land like crazy. Every guy will say that. There's many companies that they just give you so much pushback trying to get home. If you've been out 2-4 weeks to 2-3 months, it's just that kind of shit. But if I stayed in trucking and I had not going to go in the direction of entrepreneurial businesses, I would probably level up to over dimensional and heavy haul, or haul in the entertainment industry. So concerts and trade shows and all that. I got a friend, Ian. He's doing that. Does a lot of trade shows, hauls a lot of equipment from the Tennessee and from Michigan down to Tennessee. Picks up things here, takes it out to Vegas, brings stuff from Vegas back over here. But he's done pretty well with that, and concerts. So some people like them, some don't. I mean, it's just whatever you're looking for a niche that makes you feel comfortable what you're doing. Some guys like running reefer. I don't. That's probably one thing I do not want to go back to, is reefer hauling. That was the biggest pain in the ass. But yeah, I would do either specialized, trailers that extend out and all that for overdimensional or step deck. Otherwise, excuse me. Um, yeah, I do entertainment hauling. Get one of those big, what is those double A or Eagle sleepers, that's added on like a 96-inch sleeper. So the wife and I have seen a few of those on there. Oh, that's the other one. Like Reliable. A lot of those specialized carriers that haul exotic cars and shit like that. Those guys seem to be doing pretty good, and they have pretty cool trucks. So, but no, there's some other cats to skin in my future that I want to endeavor into, and yeah, trucking is definitely served the purpose of where we needed to be, raised us up, elevated us to get back on our feet, and I'm thankful for that. And my business, the company here I work for, they have done a upstanding and an awesome job. And I think I've only had one or two disagreements. But outside of that, easy peasy and good to go. And my customer base on my route, in the territory I run, um, they take care of me if I need something. They work with me. When the holiday season come along, I called in a few favors just to see, hey, can you stay late? Can you open early? I want to get done and get back. I don't want to be, don't want to be dragging my feet out here into Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. So, yeah, so I got a lot of them. I got their personal numbers. Um, Many of them have fed me. Many of them have, you create a relationship, especially when you're staying with a company like I've done, and even in the past, um, they take good care of you if you make it through that threshold. It's usually the first about 3 to 5 years. After that, then they kind of know that, all right, the investment they put into those early years is paying off, and they're getting a return on it. It's when they get a new driver in and they last 3, 6 months or 1 year. They put a lot of time and effort into training, orientation, whatever it may be. You know, benefits that they may pay, on their behalf. And all right, thanks, Laura. I see that. 6:40 p.m. Oh yes. Oh, never mind. I wasn't looking at your comment. I saw, man. Um, where was I at? But lost my train of thought. But the investment into an employee, especially if you get like a guy that's been a month or three, and they get you through orientation on some of these bigger carriers, especially when you got a flatbed company, say like TMC, and you got to go through all that training and all that, and then you get out there and you're going, and a lot of guys have quit. Um, a lot of those companies, others have quit. And usually it's pay, and in the second is respect, the way the company treats you, gets you home, gives you that reciprocating respect, and you'd be surprised. Those usually the top two: um, pay, getting home time, and just respect, and being able to talk to someone at the office when you got a problem on the road, and and they're just barking at you all the time. After a while, you just kind of throw your arms up, say "F it." And I've quit back in the '90s. I was over the road. I quit on one company because I got tired of their shit. But they ran the living snot out of us. It's like, if I didn't play ball by their way, which is get in the truck Sunday, throw the logbook in the sleeper, and just run. And run would mean leave Sunday evening, and I wouldn't even lay down to sleep till like Wednesday morning. And you just ran, and you ran hard. And but those were the companies, and those were the times, the outlaw days that led into the 2000s and all the regulations and the ELDs and everything that we have now. But on the flip side, has any of that really benefit or helped us? Has the IT in these trucks benefit? It seems like now I've seen more trucks in the ditch and flipped over than I did 25, 30 years ago. But something to keep into account is was it better than? I never got stuck. These trucks with the traction control and all this IT. Um, when I had the stick shift and none of that ABS and all that jazz, I never had problems of spinning and trying to get out of a dock or in and around a parking lot in the wintertime in the ice. Uh, these things now are just way more useless. So, um, snow and ice, plus they're lighter. My day cab Mac, heavy haul Mac that I posted, what was it, 21.5, almost 22,000 pounds on that truck as a day cab because it was a double frame Michigan Special, 46,000 pound rears, 20,000 pound front axle. Everything was just heavy, heavy, heavy. But these damn things are lucky if they break 20,000 pounds, and just plastic, 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 and fiberglass, and a lot of aluminum. So I don't know. Less steel, more crap. But just curious on what drew you into the industry. I got drawn in. I've always been around it, but when I got the opportunity, and I got hired and got the opportunity, and I had some clapped out ragtag, like early mid 70s, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was that Mac cab over, the first one, and then I got the newer Mac, the '89 Mac cab over, um, about a few months after. But when they hired me in, they had me drive the clapped out Mac, and it was a 13 speed with a KTA Cummins, I think 450 horse, 500. I don't know. That thing was so doggy because it needed an overhaul so bad. It had so much blow by. Cab over, stereo. Boy, you had one speaker, it worked. Truck was noisy as hell. Shifter was sloppy as hell. You nearly had it in front of your seat trying to grab first gear and against the doghouse trying to get the next gear because there was so much slop in the shifter. Oh, yes. You look back, and like I said, there was good, bad, and indifferent of what you dealt with back then. So, um, got to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of guys are like, I meet guys that are my age. Oh, I've been driving for 20 years. And I'm like, all right, well, I've been around this industry since I started in '88. And I said, I can tell you, I drove before computers were a thing in a truck. Everything was mechanical. Didn't even have cruise control. My red Mac, for 550,000 miles, there was no cruise control. So how I did cruise control, because we had a wet kit on there because I ran gravel trains and walking floor trailers. So with the hydraulics, you got a PTO, you could pull out your cable and lock it and get down the road. And the truck had 463 gears, so to the floorboard was 60, 61 miles an hour all day in a 55. The highway speeds then in '89, '90, early '90s was 55 for semis. So I just get up there around 58, 60 and just lock the PTO cable in and just kick back. If I had a stretch of road, I could lock it in. But that was our cruise control. Cruise control was nice when it came in late. When did it come in? The DDEX systems came in, and the Cummins 444. That was one of their first engines, electronic engines. and the DDEC systems on the Series 60. And, once they got computers working with them, they were able to implement cruise control. I think that was probably the one greatest thing they could have done is put cruise control on these trucks. So, but take that away, and it's like, dude, man, I remember going home with a sore knee, and my leg was just swelled up, just holding the throttle all day, just, and then you're clutching with the left foot, no cruise control with the right foot. Dude, you were old school in it then. So, appreciate y'all being here, checking us out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down there at the bottom. And we're going to continue to work at making the live streams better. And we should have a little bit more home time going forward in the future here, that I'll do more from the house maybe. And once I get StreamYard upgraded, but these mics, I'll have the mics done up. So when the weather starts warming up, I'll probably be out of the truck doing more with the GoPro, walking around like I did last summer, either sitting outside in the chair or just taking a walk, and we'll have discussions outside. So, and it gets too dark too soon. By the time I shut down and get this live stream going, it's pitch dark. So appreciate y'all being here, and I do appreciate y'all just subscribing to the channel. If there's something you want to have a discussion topic, anything like that, please feel free to let me know, and we can look into a topic and have a discussion on it if you'd like, just to get a perspective of things. And sounds is good. Okay. So the sound from the laptop's good, Laura? Yeah, the mic. I don't even have the mics going. I got to figure those out. I'll probably play with those, and I got to play around more AI stuff with generating thumbnails and all that. So I got a lot to do, and always got something going on. So like I said, never have time to sit and watch television in the sense of sports. I got things going and happening, and I think you guys will be, the early subscribers are going to be pretty happy as we progress down the road in a few years, and where this channel is going to go. So just right now, it's just kind of hovering around the trucking industry, but there's going to be a day when the sun sets and we move into a different direction with the channel and our topics. So I think you're going to really like what even places I may take y'all and record from. So it's going to be good stuff, positive stuff, and that's what keeps you going. The hope of knowing that you got certainty in your future, and positive things, and that's all you can keep in mind, is keeping the positive things of the certainty and things that you are placing in front of you to work hard at, and instead of relying on the system or someone else to do things for you, but you go and take charge of things that are going to advance you in life. And it gives you that certainty when you achieve one and go after another to build that out. And that's what's kept me positive and going, and I think for my wife too. So have a great evening, folks. Stay safe. Continue educating yourself. Knowledge is learned, not taught. And we will see you all in the next video.